Welcome to the Strategy Investment Podcast with Brett Warner. Brett is a successful entrepreneur, an investor, and he and his team have sold over $1 billion in real estate. This show is about exactly those topics: real estate, investing, and family finance. And hey, my name is Jason. I am your co-host here, asking your questions, learning as much as possible. And whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, we're glad that you're here. Today, we are talking about how to invest for your kids. Now, Brett, I know this is a topic that's close to your heart. Tell us a little bit about why.
Family finance, and that's, kind of what you laid into there. And you said family finance. Really, that's one of the main reasons I think we're doing the show. It's about teaching people over a lifetime to build wealth. And I think it's important as a family or a nucleus to learn how to take care of their own house. If you can take care of your own house, then you can literally help out neighbors, you can help out the local charities, you can help these things out. But you have to learn how to save first. And if you don't learn how to save first, you're never going to be able to help really anybody at the end of the day. And so teaching the kids how to invest their allowance, and then teaching the parents how to invest for the college. These are all different steps that we would take, and I think there's many ways and directions we can go.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that I hear you saying there is distinguishing between both the parents saving for their kids, which is the first thing that comes to my head. But what you went to, hey, no, the kids can start investing too. And I think that goes back to part of your story that I know a little bit about your story. What age did you personally started investing?
Well, yeah, I started investing really young. First in a little spot in my closet. That was called a savings, and I didn't know about, at that time you had to pay a lot of money to have a brokerage account. This was 30 years ago or so, and maybe a little bit less than that, but you had to have 50,000, 100,000 to actually hire somebody. So you would find a spot in your room. Well, about 16 to 17, I heard about compound, and I heard about interest. And so I started looking into ways that I could invest. At that time, there was American Century Funds or certain different companies out there that were offering mutual funds. And I realized, you can get a return. This is better than the closet. This is better than putting my money where I put $10 up, and 5 years later I come back and there's, if it's still there, $10.
Right.
But it might be worth less because we know everything depreciates about 3% a year, or 2%, just because of inflation. That's set into the books. And so I literally started to learn why my dad was doing a 401k where he was working. I was starting to learn about mutual funds. And so we started, I think I had a brother-in-law, and we started talking about these. Hey, can you see, you can go buy the American, it's like small caps, it's large caps, it's big, blue chips, which are your Boeings and your Microsofts. And then you can have some small caps, which are.
And these are all types of stocks. And when you say large cap, small cap.
Yeah, just investment in equities, different companies, companies that you drive down the store, applications that are on your phone that you don't even know there. When you use, let's say, Uber, there's Tulia that's behind there, and if you own Tulia, the moment you say, "Hey, here I am, driver," you don't even know you're using the app that's running that many different applications. And so like Uber hires their technology guys to put it into their thing. And so I like that would be a growth stock. That would be probably a small cap. Well, it was a small cap. Now it's a medium cap, and then it goes to a large cap.
Right.
When it becomes a large cap, it starts giving you dividends. Before then, it's really a growth game. It's with sometimes some small returns or payouts.
Great. Now, so for today, we've got a bunch of questions that have come in, especially on this topic. And I think it's a topic that really hits close to home for us because I know you've got kids, I've got kids. Our producer, Kylie, who's sitting here with us, she has kids as well. And what I wondered for you was investing for your kids. When did it hit you? Or, you just explained that you've been saving or not saving, but investing for yourself in some way, shape, or form for a really long time. But when did it hit you, kind of either in your career or in your lifetime, when you're like, oh no, I need to start thinking about it? Was it when the kids arrived? Was it before that? When should someone start to think about it?
Well, for me, it was probably before, because I was always a very much planner. And I a lot of this stuff, 529 plans and these other sort of covered, basically just different educational kind of plans. Coverdale's one of them. And basically, I'm sorry, help me out here.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we were just talking about when it started to really hit you. And I know the 529 plan is something we're going to talk about in just a second. It's one of the questions that came in.
Okay.
And so, but really it's just about the when. I think the first thing is about the when. It sounded like, what you were saying there is, what I heard you saying is you're a planner. You started early for yourself. It sounds like you started early for your kids as well.
Well, I think there was what I was kind of thinking on. There's a point. There's a point where the parents will then be saving for their children, and then there's a point that your children starts to save for their life, right? So I want to teach my kids how to make money over time and how the compound and how interest works. Not that they're always getting it, but I want to teach them how there's abilities to make money other than just having a job, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. But you have to invest along the way. So when I was looking at my kids, I teach them with their allowance, but that's like, hey, you got to put 10% away, and it's, you might want to give 10% away, and so I tell my kids, give away 20. Do they always give away 20? No, they're learning. They're learning right now while they're young. So I still encourage them. But as I got older, I start to then teach them how compound works by doing different little things and just laying little seeds so they know that dad, like, for example, there's things out there. I just bought a company just because I was having fun, and it's Blink, and I thought, oh, that's gonna be fun. I can tell my son, hey, we own a little bit of that. No, I don't own hardly any of it. But the thing is it's this crazy stock this week, and I was up way too late, and I decided to buy something, very small amount. But then that way I can tell my kids, hey, we own a little bit of that. Now I'll probably never get rich off of that, but
so right there, okay. So you've touched on a couple of things that I want to come back to. First thing is Blink. Blink is a stock ticker. So
which I'm not recommending.
Right. We're not necessarily.
I was up late and not sleeping well, and I make stupid calls.
And by the way, this is just all our opinion anyway.
Yes,
so this is a show about our opinion, your opinion.
Yes,
but
you go do your research on Blink.
Right. Do your own homework. That's what we recommend. But the other thing that you said there was. You said, look, for my kids, I'm trying to teach give and save. And one of the things that I know that I've heard time and time again, I'm trying to teach my kids is give, save, live on the rest. Give, save, live on the rest. I mean, if you ask my daughters, when you get money, what do you do? Even my little 8-year-old, she'll say, give, save, live on the rest. And that's what I heard you just say. Is that something that I heard percentages along with that? Is there a percentage that you recommend for each one of those?
Well, if you could start with $1 a day, that would be good. Let's just make it easier. $7 a week. How's that sound?
Right.
So basically the same, but really, I mean, yes, there is an amount, but it depends on where they are and what they're saving for. So, generally I tell somebody, if you're an older person in your young 20s, I'd say try to get 20% away. Right. But if you're young and you're 17, I might say put 10% away. What I'm trying to do is get somebody to see over time that that money will start to grow. And if they can do that for 3 to 5 years, generally they can see something, especially if they were able to grab a couple different investments rather than just one cookie cutter kind of thing. And then it can actually become an encouragement after 5 years. The problem is they don't want to put the $1 away. And I try to always tell them, you got to put $1 away. I mean, if you can't put $1 away a day, you're going to die broke. And good for you. If you want to die broke, die broke. I don't want to die broke. I want to have enough to at least,
It is hard though, isn't it? Because I think I know that you've talked with me a lot about discipline and just kind of going like, no, I'm disciplining myself. I'm going like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'll speak for myself and even say in my younger day, the first thing I thought is, how am I going to spend this $1? Not save it. But I love that idea of really kind of teaching that at an early age. The other thing that you mentioned a couple minutes ago was this idea of compound. You mentioned the word compound. For our listeners who might be new to this idea, and I think it's one of probably the most important ideas that you talk about and that someone can learn with respect to investing. Talk about the idea of compound interest, compounding on.
Well, compound interest can be an incredible motivator. But it takes time. And so compound there's basically a rule of 72. And so you divide in your interest rate. So if you're getting 7% a year, it's going to take you 7.2 years. It's 7 divided into 72, 7.2. That means it's going to take you 7.2 years to double your money. And that's why, savings, it's still the same amount. If you save $1 a day, basically for your whole lifetime, you got 50 grand. I mean, when I die, 50 grand ain't going to go very far.
Right.
Or, unless I die tomorrow. But, later out.
Yeah, we talked about depreciation earlier, right? It's just not going to be worth as much in the future.
But if I compounded that money from year one, and these are the things we'll get into later, and as we talk about things, that $50,000, because it's $1 a day, it's real easy. You live 365 days a year, and you go 10 years is 3,000 days. So every 20 years is 7,000 days. And if you live 100 years, it's 30,000 days. Is that right? 30,000 days? Something like that.
We're looking at a producer. She's our math person.
3,365.
Get my calculator
something like
out.
that. I think it's 36,000 days or so. It's not really that many. What I'm getting at is that it won't be a whole lot. It's going to be 50,000, and if you just put $1 with no compound. With compound from the very beginning, because those dollars start to generate on the dollars, that's where you can actually, 20 years out, your compound interest will be, on one day's a gain of 2%. If it went up 1,000% over that time, it literally can be, and that's a 30-year word. It can be doubling. It can be. Every bit, a penny, if you put $400 down, every day it's going up $400 because the power of compound. Each one of those dollars are working for you. I call them little gremlins, and there's some books out there giving different names, but generally each one of those are working, and those are making a return. And it's ROI, which you've heard me say in the past shows, which is return on investment. And so for me, I always tell people, if you tell me to save money in a bank account, and you put the money in the bank account, and it's at zero, return.
Or less than 1%.
Yeah, less than
1%.
If you got less than $500 in there, they might give you a little better. But really, if you got any kind of money, I want to spend the money. I don't have any interest in saving it. It's more, I want this immediate gratification because I'm not being gratified or rewarded by holding it, where over time, if you invest, there's what we call delayed gratification, which we don't hear about as often as today. And I think delayed gratification is one of those things that's really important because it can actually encourage you as you start to go. And then you start to realize that money can actually, if you get enough away, let's just say somebody over a 10-year period puts away $500,000. That $500,000 should be making more than they're making each day working.
Right.
And I just don't think people get it. And so, but you will have down days and up days and everything. I say, but this week's a perfect week where we're at right now. There's tops and the bottom. This can happen all the time. Right now, historically, we've had more up days than we have down because we're at all-time highs in pretty much all of our Dow Jones, our S&P 500. And so I'd tell people, well, look, at history, this week, it's like 11% return. Now, if the market tanks next week and it goes down to 30%, let's just say down 30%, which means you got to go back up 60%. Literally, you can see you'll see a big return.
Right, that return is going to be there. Right. Now, one of the things that we were talking about as we kicked off this show and thinking about how to invest for your kids. One of the things that we were talking about with our producer Kylie before the show is just how your finances change when you have kids.
Yes.
And there are two main kind of financial statements in general, both in your personal life and in any business, which are an income statement and a balance sheet. And your income statement is really, it's often referred to as a P&L as well, a profit and loss statement. So it's ultimately what comes in and then what goes out and what you have at the end. And that changes when you have kids.
Absolutely.
and I know, like, we were talking with Kylie, she's got young kids right now. And I wanted to just talk about, I think, maybe like what some of, even all our experiences, I'd love to hear from Kylie on this as well, of what were some of the stories of what changed financially, when kids come along. And I'll start this off because I'd love to hear from everybody here today. And I think for me, it was when you traveled, because when you travel with little kids, there is the pack and play, there is the car seat, there is the bag that has their clothes in it, there is the diaper bag, there is the stroller. There are all these things that come along that begin to occur to you that you need. And I think that was a little bit of the why for today. Kylie, I'd love to hear from you because we were talking about this earlier.
I feel you on the travel part, that I've been there as well. But I think for me, just going to the grocery store completely changed, whether that's adding diapers onto your bill or just extra food, clothing. There's all the different things that you need when you go to the store, when you now, instead of being just two people, have children in your house, and your budget that you might be able to squeak by when you have adults in the house, it doesn't fly anymore when you have children. Yeah. It just skyrockets.
Just so different. And so, Brett, I wondered for you, is that something that, because you said you thought about it early on, you thought about it before the kids showed up. Was that something that you were kind of going, all right, I understand kind of what I need, or was it more, no, I'm just putting an overall strategy together?
Well, for me, yeah, I was amazed how expensive kids were.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, I heard people say, to raise a kid, and they say something like $1 million or something like
some
that.
crazy number.
Different numbers.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, and I got these kids, and I thought, oh my golly, this is really expensive. And I gotta work another decade to raise these kids. And so, because I thought I was going to retire younger, and I didn't realize, because I wanted to have fun too with them. I didn't want to be a miser, and so I wanted to go to have trips and be on the beach, and whenever we could, at least take those family trips, Disneyland, whatever that is. But really, for me, it was when I got a little older, and my kids were younger, and I got a chance to go to out of state on a trip without the family. And I said, now I would always want to go with my wife, so I'd say 50%. But I'd say with my family, I'd say, well, everything's 75% off. I go to the restaurant, it's not $150, it's $25. Right. I go here, it's not $180, it's $90. It was amazing, and I would not trade any of that money.
Of course.
But I do know that.
It changes.
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
I say to make memories is not cheap. I mean, and you can go do it anywhere. The thing is when you're young, you start doing it at the local ocean or your local beach or maybe on the mountain. And then you get a little bit of money, right? And you get a chance to go on an airplane and you go out there. And next thing you know, nobody wants to go back to the beach or the mountain.
That changes.
They all want to go to the island or whatever that is. And so that can be expensive. And it depends on where you're at. Some people say, I never got to an island. Well, start saving.
Right.
I started at 16.
Yeah.
Nobody gave it to me. I really had to save. Now, there are ways that you can save. We were talking earlier, and it was kind of like, if you don't have any money, talk to your grandma, talk to grandpa, and say, can you put $25 into this Coverdale, into this 529? Because if you can't save, I'm telling you, what's going to hit you halfway through. One thing I'm real happy about is I have my college, a lot of the kids' college saved for, and so I'm not going to be hit here in the let's call it the sixth inning with a bunch of expenses and not realize that I saved anything. So we know most kids come out with between $40,000 to $100,000 with a debt, and some are more if you go on to a bunch of graduates. But really, if you just do the $1 a plan a day and you actually invest it, and there's different things you can get to, but you can save yourself $25,000. So your kid will have $10,000 in debt at the end, or the parents will. And so really, during the 4 years of school, you only have to get $2,000 every year, rather than essentially maybe let's just say 12 or 20, right, depending on scholarships.
Let's talk about that 529 plan for a second, because I think it's probably one of the most common vehicles, right, that we hear about and often recommended. Yes. Is it something that you recommend? Is the 529 plan, now that's a saving, well, I mean, I'll let you describe it. I'm not going to describe it to your listeners. You're going to do a better job. 529, good idea, bad idea, what is it? Is it recommended?
Yeah, I think 529 is a great plan. If you have nowhere to, you're not saving and you don't have any stock accounts and you're just trying to figure it out, probably one of your first accounts you'd want to build after your own personal Roth, then you'd want to have a 529. Or you could go with, I'll make sure I say this right. I've been saying this several times over there. There's custodial accounts that you can do.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, Coverdale Educational Savings Account. People don't talk about those much. They have some tax benefits, but most people don't do those because you can write off $1,000 in the Coverdale. That was there a little bit before the 529. 529 kind of looks like a Roth a little bit. You have free growth. You can use it for only school coverages, so school items. It can be your 529 can be used for I think it's your housing too, and pencils and whatever else. But 529 is real simple because if you start at 529 when you're young, you can go to TD Ameritrade, you can go to Schwab. There's many of different companies out there, and they'll have little things on it, and just go 529, and they'll pull it up, and they have their own plan. So, for example, like a TD Waterhouse, they have a California plan, I believe it is, and they set it up, and it changes. So when your kid, it's very aggressive. When the kid is, let's just say 1 to 6, from 6 to 12, it gets a little less aggressive. When your kid's going into college, like 17, 18, maybe 16, it might start. It starts cutting back, and it's almost treating you like you're old, and it starts sticking the kid in bonds. And so that way, it kind of they manage that money for you. And generally, I think you can do some 529s and go to buy individual stocks, but you're not going to be able to go buy. Most 529s, they have it set up. We have a guy who's going to buy these stocks. Here's your plan. And we're going to buy these stocks, and it's really more invested on your kid's age and how aggressive it is. And when they're younger, it's more aggressive. As it gets older, because they don't want it to be wiped out.
Right.
You're 18, go down 50%, and now you had 30, but now you got 15. And
Okay.
so that's why they kind of back it out.
So one of the questions that you mentioned the comparison between the 529 and the Roth, and I think that's an important comparison because, as I understand it, it's more of a question, is the tax haven, really, like the non-tax, like the reason it's a good idea is because you end up getting, you don't have to pay tax on that income that you're putting away. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the money. We'll just talk about this one right now, because there's ways I can get to the answer.
Yeah.
But really, when you put the money in there, you pay taxes on it. I get it in my paycheck, I pay my taxes on it, and I'm not going to write those taxes. I'm going to put it into 529, where the Coverdale I could write off if I have state taxes in certain states up to $1,000. But $1,000 really is not that much to write off. So a lot of people like to go to 529 because you get that growth. Once again, coming back to that word compound, tax free. And so those dollars that you put away year 1, 2, and 3, if you were really wise and got on it before age 5, most people really don't think about it till 5 or 6.
Right.
But if you did, you'd have those years of compound growth. And when you pull it out, there's no taxes. So generally, if I use my tax dollars I earn, I got to pay taxes, and then I pay for school. This money's been put away. It's grown over a decade, maybe 2 decades, and then I take it out, and I don't have to pay no taxes on it.
Got it.
But it has to be on school expenses.
I
Yes.
have a question though, just for our listeners that are hearing this. Let's say they were proactive, started saving money, and what happens when their kids turn 18 and the plan isn't for them to go to school? Maybe they have different goals or something happening. What happens to the money
If they don't end up going to school?
if they don't end up going to school?
Yeah, well, it's there. It still continues to grow. So like some things have limits. The Roth has an income, it has an amount that you can put in there every year, and I think that amount is like 3,000. I get my numbers a little messed up. Sometimes I want to look, but let's just say it's 5,000, and so you can put 5,000 away for your kid a year, and you don't write it off. The thing is when you get there, and the kid says, "Hey, I want to go do something that's educational." If it's anything in training. If they want to go learn to become whatever that skilled labor is, you can use the money for that.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Or you could take the money out and pay a 10% penalty if you wanted to. So you could say, okay, that's fine. You don't want to go to school? I did what I needed to do to help that I'm not going to get rocked in the 6th inning. Now you don't want, I'm going to go ahead and take that back. I'm going to pay back my 10%. Remember, if you got yourself in a good investments, you should be getting 5% a year, 10 year. So you're only going to lose about a year's worth of growth. I mean, if you got a bad season, maybe not. And here's the good part, though. This is what's really, the 529 is nice. 529, you can literally put the money away for the next kid. So I can say, okay, Bob, my son Bob, he's not going to go to school. So Bob 2, my grandson, 40 years out. Gotcha. I'm going to go and now you don't change it, you don't touch it, you leave it in there under Bob 1. And then Bob 1 has Bob 2. And Bob 2, now you're a grandparent, you go, I'm going to change my designator. Now that had 40 years of compound.
Right.
That's going to pay for every grandkid's money. How you better have the kids different parts, because if they're all going to school at the same time, you can only designate it to one kid, I believe. So, you say, hey, Bob 2, every 4 years you have 2 kids. You know.
Yeah, that right. That generational.
Don't have
thing.
twins because we can only cover one. No.
Only one gets to go to college.
Yeah. So, you know, but that would be like phenomenal. I mean, imagine that having an 18-year thing that's worth about $30,000. You went in another 40 years and you said, well, we'll just see what happens. I don't really need the money because I'm saving into these other buckets. And then you turn around and there would be no question to me that'd be hundreds of thousands for the 30 years. If you went through another 20 years and then a child 5 years out,
That's
25
great.
years.
That's great. One of the questions, I think it's definitely related to this as well, is one of the questions that we had consistently is it too late if I have kids in middle school? Is it too late if I have kids in high school? I think one of the things that we hear people say a lot of times is, I feel like I missed it. I feel, my kids are already, well along, middle school, high school. Is that true? I mean, ideal time? Have they missed it? Is it still worth it?
I don't think you can ever miss it. You can be late to the game. There's no question about that. You'll have less, but you need to learn. And so if you finally figure that out and your kid's going to school at 18 and they're 15, we'll start saving. I mean, it's better to have $3,000 put away than it is to not have anything.
Right.
And you're instilling habits. You're instilling habits into everybody around you. You're just being a good steward of that money. So, I mean, I don't think it's ever too late to start. Your nest egg is not going to pay for as much. So you'll probably either get loans or you'll have a rich uncle.
Right, exactly. So that's a perfect lead in actually to one of the next questions. And it's this idea of generational wealth. Now, this is an interesting topic, and you and I have talked about this a little bit because there are some that are, have generated wealth over their lifetime and said, actually, no, my kids are going to do it on their own. And I would say even Warren Buffett subscribes to this kind of idea of like, no, my kids are going to go ahead and make it out there on their own. I wonder what you would recommend as far as going, all right, I've built this wealth, it should be generational, or you know what? No, I think there's value in putting it away for the generation after my kids. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Generational
wealth.
Wealth.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important. I think it's. I often talk to you. You'll hear me. I tell my son that we have a farm, and you just don't see the cows, you don't see the pigs. But it's investments, and so I try to let him know there's something out there. But generational wealth, I don't know if it's really taught because. I mean, it's taught, but it has to be practiced. And so right. I've heard many times that, like so-and-so, some big emperor, let's just say Caterpillar, the founder or something like that, it takes he passes away with, millions. Right. And then it only takes a generation. It usually doesn't take more than 2 generations to go through it all if they don't know how to manage it.
Right.
So generational wealth is really taught through the mindset and through respecting that's what you're overseeing. And not just taking it lightly. The money, well, yeah, you certainly want something left, but I always tell everybody, I tell my son, I didn't make all this money to give it all to you.
Yeah.
I gave him this money so I can enjoy it.
Right.
So my wife, she kind of has a different thought,
Yeah.
But I make the money for myself, and it's to provide for those around me why I exist. And if there's something left, then great.
Right. And the other thing that I see you do, Brett, though, and it comes back to this generosity and to give piece. Yes. What I see you do so often is in this community, you're always looking for opportunities to go, no, I'm going to help here. I'm going to help whether it's, my faith-based organization, my church, or there's some people that just need some housing. And, yes. And is that something that you consciously do? Is that something you're going, no, I'm setting some generational wealth aside for that purpose? Or how do you think about that generosity piece?
Well, that's just the day-to-day thing. That's just who, you become who you are by realizing if you help people that often you're rewarded more than any money could ever help you. Money can actually bring more problems and more people who you start to wonder sometimes are they there for the money? Where when you're there for generosity, you really, when you see somebody crying because you're making a difference, and or whatever that is, and just being honest with people, I think it's just important when I'm out there to help people. I mean, honestly, when I go through the store and I look and I see somebody that needs help, it's not always cash. Sometimes it's a little bit of advice. Sometimes it's cut your hair, dude. You want a job, you got to cut your hair. I just had a conversation last week with a guy about that, and I said, he wanted a meal, and I said, I'm not giving you a meal. They'll feed you for an hour, but I'll cut your hair. That'll last a month. Right. I'm looking at everything as an investment. Every relationship around me is an investment, but it's not always there. I'm not looking for an immediate return. The amazing part is there's a lot of return, and sometimes it's just somebody having hope in mankind. Right? I mean,
yes.
Saying, hey, actually somebody cares. Somebody actually that's not my family. I mean, I find family that's where I go back to the beginning of the opening. Why family is so important. I cannot believe how many times I'm helping another person's family. I'm like, where's your family? And I don't know if it's them who isolated themselves or truly is their family that rotten. And because I often sometimes think, I wonder if it's them because I'm dealing with them. But then I'm going, geez, how can you just, this is family. It starts at a young age, teaching respect, teaching authority, teaching purpose, and delayed gratification.
Right. That discipline of saving and of investing. Yeah.
Absolutely. The reward is so much better than short term. See, that's the thing. People get it, and they don't even know what they're missing. And that's what it's like to be a child, right? I mean, a child often doesn't realize that if you wait for something, it's much better. I tell people I could buy 5 Teslas over, and I don't really have that much money, but I could really go out and buy 5 Teslas because I bought Tesla years ago. The truth is, for me, the idea of just buying a Tesla is better than actually having a Tesla. Because once I have the Tesla 2-3 weeks, a month into it, it's an old car. And certainly a year and a half, I'm not thinking about my nice Tesla. Now, I like a Tesla, and one day I might get one. And I'm not trying to put an advertisement out here, but I'm just saying, for me, just the thought that I can get another Tesla is amazing. And then why I keep thinking about the next Tesla, I can now afford 3 Teslas. But if I bought the Tesla, I'd still be paying off that Tesla, and it'd probably be worth $15,000, and I'd have a $500 payment due next month. And for me, I've learned to just wait because I really like experiences, and I like moments, and I like relationships. And money can get you there and can have that day, part of that day, buy back that time, so that way you can have more of those relational experiences rather than sitting there with a wrench and looking at an engine because it doesn't have a very good conversation with you. Now, that's a great place to be. You can make money there, but I like to buy back my time so then I can go impact lives because I just find it fun. And there's times it makes me tired. I think it'll make anybody tired if you're out there working with people. When you work with people, that's one of the toughest jobs ever. But man, the reward when you have one that does well, and especially when you have one that you can help set up over time, to have the personal freedoms that I enjoy. And I still have to work. I didn't take the day off. There was things I did. I'll probably do that till I'm 80. It's just discipline and responsibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. That's such good insight. And look, that's the time that we have for today. So we're going to wrap up. We're going to say thank you to a couple of our sponsors, actually our Creative Consortium. It's the place where we're sitting right now, the studio space that we've got there in Paulsbo, Washington. And hey, the other thing that I want to mention to you listeners out there is if you've got questions that you want to pose to Brett, put on the show, if you want to reach out to us in any way, you can go to the website strategyinvestment.net, There's a place to, you can fill in some questions there or give us a comment or two, and you can, of course, always subscribe to the website or the YouTube channel. We will see you next time.